Daily trading recap here for this Tuesday, the 26th of April, 2022. To Christ be the glory. Dollar volume first before we get into today's ongoings. NASDAQ $290 billion volume as of hour and 5 minutes after the close. NYSE $381 billion volume. OTC's $1.6 billion volume on the day. Another hard red day on the SPY overall, showing 2.9% in the red, putting us very, very close to testing this little regional recent low here, kind of this 410-ish to 415-ish range low for after that pullback off of the all-time highs test there above 480. So we'll see where, if support, any amount comes in over the next few days, of the course of the next few trading weeks, or if we do start to break that and full what would be probably considered, in my opinion, of more of a bear market that compared to where we were in this absolute, without a doubt, bull market, that it just now becomes more of a what's considered normal or just rational acting market. Not even rational compared to these last few days, of just for how hard those red days have been, but just of the ebbs and flows, ups and downs of normal market activity, whatever normal is anymore. But following along closer to that mean, closer to that average, as compared to the craziness that was just this hot 2020 and 2021 run. Absolute insanity there. Future strategy. On the ES side, worked out beautifully for that profit target that I was searching for the session-wide automated strategy that I had going, but I did not get filled fully on the MES side, which I go 5 MES to just be half of an ES contract, so that's a size that I'm comfortable with. But that's the little tough part, is just a little bit of divergence and variance in between those two trading prices, and just of how they get filled, or when or if they get touched on certain limit orders here and there. So tough in that aspect, and then also tough, of course, too, as my goal is to try and get filled right close to near where we open, whatever the open price is. Sometimes there's a little bit of slippage to the upside, sometimes a little slippage to the downside, which can be good. And of course, since I'm looking for profit, a target above the open price there, so I can get a little bit more wiggle room if price is certainly going to start to trend in the range that I want to see, that it's more confident in that regard. Whatever, I'm getting off course of what my concern is with it. That's just the tough part of this, comparing back testing to, of course, taking it out of the vacuum and looking at reality of it's not always going to be right near or even relatively close to where that perfect open price is. And then trying to judge, okay, well, do I just wait at certain times to see if I can get filled there a little bit later, or do I just wait a little bit if I can get filled under that open price, or how to go about that, of if I'm just getting filled at such a vast divergence there, that do I just go along with it and kind of hope and pray that it still hits that same target that I have set from my entry point, which is really should be based from that open price, which is the whole strategy and backtesting data is on. That's just the tough part of this backtested strategy, of taking it into the real world. It's not going to happen perfectly every single time. So long story short, I only got filled of one contract of the 5 that I did have on that MES side for some whatever reason. As my 5 were getting filled right on the start of the session, only one was able to be hit on the MES side, while leaving 4 to defend for themselves, essentially, or just looking for far beyond what that initial price target was in order to get filled, while not being filled when price was kind of trading there, if that makes sense. But as I was recognizing that, I just kind of kept to myself an understanding of, okay, price has reached what my target was and beyond what I would have held myself accountable to for the strategy. So since price was, like, as I'm watching this and price is kind of trending here, we'll look at the side for better clarity of last night's action of, hey, as we open up here, we get a hard dumpage. Okay, whatever our fill is considered there. Now, as price has already met our standards, but we haven't gotten filled yet, and it's already kind of pulled back a little bit, I can't try to force more out of it or still keep that position on to say, oh, I need to see more, or I'm waiting for these shares to get filled, because that would be going against what my strategy was. So I did go ahead and set a stop order. I had just break even for those remaining 4 little contracts. And then I think those did actually end up stopping me out just a few hours later for whenever that time frame was. I forget specifically on the Eastern time frame as well, trying to correlate that. But ended up just really with the one contract prospering on that one, even though by the parameters I have set and looked at it, it shoulda, coulda, woulda. But just because of reality of life and not getting filled at specific hard key price levels, just didn't work out in that regard. So glad I did take it off, because that would have been a hard and significant, again, amount of points today of another red day to add to that strategy for the meantime. But yeah, it still would have been a win day in the overall, what considered is the back testing counter for this strategy. So keeping that in the same regard too. I did also try to take a little stabby with one MES contract intraday I do like these little trades, and just the more that I play around with and fantasize about the lottery ticket, like, oh, if I just went all in with ES contracts today, right, it would have been like $100,000 win. I think it would have been. I know it would have been on that 1-2 last week, whatever that day that was. But yeah, just the fantasies that I create, of course, that's just so alluring of like, oh, I can multiplying by 50 and multiplying by how many points it would have been and multiplying by how many contracts I can take with my current account position size, and just the things that I would actually never do, but just fun to dream that way of. But also realizing on that side too of, hey, even with one MES contract like I was trying to play for today, there's very, very decent, very optimal risk reward setups on days like this, that it doesn't have to be on days like yesterday where you can kind of get chopped around a little bit. You can kind of scalp your way out with either a break even or a little tiny profit trade, or even if you're able to hold through or find some spot to take it for a nice little green push there. But on days like this of fuller, more broader trend days, man, there's a heck of a lot of downside for finding an optimal risk reward setup of kind of picking a VWAP top here, which I, of course, later identified in hindsight. That's a beautiful entry there, or a second one here, or another attempt there to try and reclaim VWAP, of picking those areas to say, hey, here's a nice risk reward area. I certainly think there's still more downside. Let's find an entry here and let's just play it with one MES contract. For my current situation, that's a beautiful position size and risk that I'm willing to take, and beautiful, beautiful downside and opportunity that. So expanding myself as a trader that way is certainly something that I want to consider doing more in the future that way. I tried to get in just a little bit early with my MES contract and play it for just as it was failing to really have any continuation or reclaim to VWAP, play it near this candle, to looking for the break to a new low, and then continue it on further for the rest of the day for a full intraday play. But I barely found a little bottom, foot in a little bit of a higher low in this candle, started reclaiming, pushing higher above this little regional high, so I ended up cutting it for stupid little profit, or stupid little loss, excuse me. Did tap a little bit above VWAP, and then sure enough, 2 minutes later, it comes right back down for beautiful price action, and then just continues to go on and do the rest of the day exactly what I was looking for, that type of move there. But that's index trading, right? That's the S&P 500, that's ES and futures that way. So learning from it and understanding that the frustration and the FOMO was there of like, oh gosh, it could have been such an awesome winter day, but then the realization is also there immediately, overwhelming that thought of there's going to be another day on SPY. This is a great learning lesson and example of saying it doesn't have to come from one day, but this was a great experience in not just being caught up in the FOMO of trying to recreate that position or trying to get back in and just create it again and screwing myself over even more, but taking that deep breath and understanding there will be another day. It's not all about just the profits today. It's about who I am as a trader and how this day develops me for the trader tomorrow, and so on and so forth there. But off of that as well too, I did another little tiny breathwork session before even the prep work today in pre-market, and I did feel I found a lot of benefit from that. Didn't feel as crazy offset as I did yesterday, for whatever reason that was yesterday. That's just gonna happen. That's emotions, right? But today didn't feel that as much, but even still just went forward with it, of the little affirmations and calming breathwork before even really looking hard at any type of green or red candle, and did feel I found a lot of benefit from it and continued to just clear my mind and perspective and prepared myself far more for today's action than if I hadn't done that, which has kind of been my routine of just kind of going with it and thinking, breathwork's kind of for like the hard stuff, or like if you're actually just going crazy. I don't really need that right now. I think that's where I find a fault in a lot of how I go about and function working from home, is just like those little tiny minute things of, well, I'm doing this, but it's not that full little like, I'm not even talking about trading in the entire sense. I'm talking about just like the little tiny things of, oh, do I want to look at charts right now, or I'm kind of also looking at my phone, or just the little tiny gray areas is where it gets very sloppy and can get very downward spiraling very quickly. So that's something that I definitely want to keep myself accountable to, and self-discipline, maintain that, and stay on top of watching myself, of the little phone interactions, of talking to other family members, of just the anything and everything of the daydreaming and all those types of variables. It's not going to be perfect by any means, but I know there's certainly room for improvement there too. So continuing to keep myself accountable with that. I had a lot of traders on the day, and I think I did get very, very lucky with VERU and what I thought was an awesome little exit on CYN, but it was actually a little bit different there. But that is, even saying that you're lucky, it's a lot of luck, of course, is just generated from showing up. Like, you're going to find luck just the more amount of times that you show up. Like, if you just play the lottery every single time, when it does eventually happen after the 999th million time, is it luck, or is it just like you play it enough times to actually find the one in that number chance of it actually happening? So I view that as, there is luck, and then there is, hey, you're making your own luck. That is trading. That is a lot of things in life. Is the more you're dedicated, and I'm not saying comparing myself to the dedication of the hardworkingness, but hey, just showing up, putting in the screen time, you're going to find those different and little variables like that. And that's what I want to do more and more, is just continue to open myself up for that and not restrict that luck from happening, or God's blessings in essence on that. So I think that was all I had. Let's get into it, starting with JZXN. This ticker from the 14th of July, just as a reminder for me as well, was previously on the equity side, my biggest loser and my biggest winner on the same pre-market. I took it short, looking for that morning dump setup in this little push here. Got started short here as I thought price was failing to maintain VWAP, but sure enough, it rejected. Pushed to a new high of day from there. Ended up covering with a little bit of slippage for my biggest loss. A pretty big percentage move at that point too, taking it from 6.6-ish above 7.2 there. So for whatever that was, I knew I still had a day trade on that day. I think this was a great day to trade and recap on that day as well. But then still was able to maintain myself and not lose my emotions and recognize, hey, price is still showing a similar opportunity for a morning jump. I'm going to take it short again. And even I only took it from just above 7, I think, or right at 7 almost, and was covering fully into this consolidation around 8:45 Eastern time frame there. Not even allowing it for it to go continually further in market hours, but recovering that big loss that I initially took and making both my biggest loser and my biggest winner ever on the equity side in that one single pre-market on this one chart there. So I remember that totally when I saw this one on the pre-market scanner pop up and wanted to do a similar thing, and totally was there and recognizing and saying, okay, this is the time. This is the price's failure to maintain VWAP, and I consciously 100% made the choice. I just don't want to take it. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't feel that the sentiment is fully there for these morning dump setups, this playbook pattern that I've found and developed and found a little niche for myself in. I just feel, maybe a little bit from a characteristic standpoint of that, okay, it's kind of used to a little bit of fake outs, but even that, back on that chart day, it wasn't really meant to be a fake out. It was still finding its peak. And it's not like it was just so hard. I think I created a little bit too much of a manipulation aspect in my mind, having traded it beforehand and not really seeing and recognizing, gosh, well, that type of price action kind of reminds me of a little bit of this that it did today here, of this, it's still peaking and then it's failing to maintain VWAP, a similar sign there, and then it's faking out, creating a new high of day. I mean, that's in the same pretty similar realm, and that's what I factored in, thinking, I think it's just a little bit too fake outy, manipulative, and it's just not enough overall market ecosystem for this specific trade convicted it enough for me to take that trade, especially when I have not been taking this trade religiously at all in any recent trade. So then step in again with big size, because I would want to be taking big size for how convicted I do get on these trades, and for, in hindsight, obviously what ends up happening to these charts. But made the conscious decision. I'm aware of it. I am watching this level 2 in time and sales like a hawk. I know it could be getting filled right above this 230 level here, and then just watched it slip through my fingers. Watched it just continue to go and go and go and go, and then eventually find a little bit of a bottom, and it looked like it was putting in a huge bid and finding support at 215. I ended up getting a super late fill 218 there, as I was playing for a little morning dump reversal, still keeping that fake out aspect in mind of looking for a potential reclaim to VWAP, a push to potentially around that 2.4 range again, just as a little scalp, I want to say scalpy trade there, but playing that morning dump reversal trade there, not looking for what actually, looking for the reversal of what actually ended up happening during the rest of pre-market and eventually market hours there, but just did not happen, and cut very late. In the same regard, I turned my head for just a few seconds looking at other charts and wanting to risk that 215, 214 level, and sure enough, it was already 210, 209 before I could even push that button to get me out there for that little tiny 50 share trade on that one. So cut losses quickly, understand when I'm in the wrong, and willing to accept when overall I was in the wrong on just the trade thesis that I missed on that chart. I was prepared, ready for it. I've seen it before, traded this exact ticker before that same exact way. Just made the choice not to, and I'm living with it. EVOK I also took a little stabby on. Again, this is one of those, I wanted to call it this little pattern playbook trade, the little squirt. I've been making a little PowerPoint presentation. I want to do another video if it does start to come out more and more of playing similar trades like this that are the first screen day movers, high dollar volume, high percentage move, and coming into market open at or right near high of day and looking for just that little squirt, that little extra juice of shorts covering or just volume inducing some stops to be hit by shorts if price does go higher, and just setting limit orders in. I'm getting filled, few seconds, 30, 20 seconds before market open, and setting limit orders in. I think I had mine for 145, 1.5 at max. Just a little tiny quick action of having those limit orders in, not looking to anticipate anything or trying to read anything off the level 2 or time and sales, but just playing on, hey, in this craziness, is there a way or possible chance I could get filled here? For how many times we've seen wicks of candles do that, it happens before you can even recognize it or see it. It's just the crazy algorithmic trading that is trading. So that's what I feel has been a repeatable and consistent pattern, and I never really saw any chart that did any differently from that or had a harder pullback in that first minute after it had that specific action, whereas today was the first example of that. So I was very thankful to have a chart like this now and understand the potential risk reward for these trades, which of course just based off of this trade and for the potential winners that I would look at, I can identify this specific strategy or playbook trade as a 1-to-1 risk reward. At best, maybe you're getting a little bit more reward if you're keeping yourself, if you're just watching it a little better or giving it a little bit of leniency and adjusting your stop along the way as price is holding a little bit, maybe giving it more into that second minute candle as well, just at the open there. But this strategy is just totally meant to be a 100% scalpy, non-biased trade in any way of like trying to watch a level 2 or time of sales and think I'm seeing something and playing off of that. It's just totally like, hey, it's opening near the highs. This is what tends to happen. I feel like I've developed a few charts there. As I'll talk in the video, actually. IMMX from the 3rd of January of 2021. VLON, that happened on the 22nd of this month of this year. CASA, the 18th of this month. And then using today, I never really had a good non-example of this trade. So thankful for this one today of being able to recognize that and being part of it when that specific price action I'm looking for just doesn't happen. So even though it was a loss, I'm thankful for it. And that's one of my rules too, is learning, growing, and being grateful and gracious in every loss and every gain. And very gracious for this example today and being able to apply that for potential continual trading of this little squirt pattern to do in the future. It's, if the hit rate is there on this trade, I think I'm totally fine with a 1-to-1 risk reward, knowing that it is a just totally scalpy, totally experience based trade, or in the form of like reading a level 2 or time of sales and understanding, seeing bidders and sellers stepping up to push price action because identifying, this happened because this specifically happened here. No, it's just like, hey, any monkey could do this, of seeing it's opening near the high with big volume, with a big first green day, with this big percentage move there. These things tend to happen, and that is just the trade in entirety. So I'm totally fine with that. It's not attached to me in any way, shape, or form. It's just something I feel I've identified, and yeah, thankful for the experience of it not working out today. That is trading. It's not always going to work out. Next one was CYN. Man, did not expect this price action today. Had those lingering shares that I started in still from that position yesterday, and in the key moments that I wanted to be in this trade, still trading it off of that anchored VWAP little tool and testing that I've been doing with it. Wanting to initially be in on the trade after seeing it bounce off of that 2-1 level. Wasn't in front of my screen at then, but still saw it clinging around VWAP there. Said, hey, I'm willing to risk it coming back and risking VWAP there as a break. And sure enough, it started just ramping from my entry right then and there. I know for certain I would have been taking off into this $3 push here, or having some limit order along the way at least to be taken off. If it was a real position size, a full position size, absolutely would have been taken off in this push there. But of course, I come back to the computer and it's already trading down here, just a little bit around here. I'm saying, it's still holding. I'm willing to just let it do what it wants to do. It's yesterday, especially just on very lackluster volume, the lowest volume of this little 4-day stretch here. which was very surprising to see. And then coming in today, we got some nice action out of the gate. I take off a little bit in 2.5-ish range, another into this little high of day failure to push there, take off a little bit into that. Had another stop as I thought it was breaking here again with another 5 shares off of that one. I'm so out of 15 shares here at this point, but still hasn't broken low of day and still really hasn't broken my entry price or what I was initially risking either. So saying, it's 5 shares. I'm willing to let it do what it wants to do. It's done crazier things on lower volume. Let's see if it can attract some amount of volume to push this thing higher. And sure enough, it absolutely did. For the longest time before I actually reflected on it, I had set a limit order before I left for the gym to $3.15, knowing that, I was kind of playing around with, I'll just sell into that $3 push there. But if we're getting back to $3 again, I know it's going to go far further than just $3. So, hey, let's give it 15 cents, $3.15. And then I saw that my position was closed, and I was like, oh my gosh, awesome. I picked this little top regional candle high here. This, of course, the new high of day hadn't happened yet. But I was like, how freaking lucky is that? Of just, that is you making your own luck. And just sure enough, it finds the little peak there with my limit order. And then it wasn't until I was like putting in the numbers and realizing 257, but it doesn't even show I got filled above 3. Oh, shoot. I was setting a stop, slowly adjusting it to these little lows here. And then as price continued to push, I think I adjusted it to this 257 or just around this mark for whatever arbitrary reason, that thinking if it was breaking that high, then VWAP would later follow, and it was just going to be more downhill from there. So sure enough, it hit that stop before it hit my profit target of 315. So it was sucky, but yeah, I was on the right track. And of course, even that 315 level, the thought in my mind there of, okay, yeah, even going off of that thought of, okay, if it's touching $3, I know it's going to go above $3. If we're hitting $3 again, there's going to be more volume coming in this thing at that point. So let's put it above there. But 315, gosh, yeah. I mean, if we're getting to that point, we got to think of a lot of these traders still using this chart, or just slowly continuing to size into it for the lack of volume that's there, for the just frustration that this thing is causing because it is so low volume and it's not just like rapidly pushing you against, and it comes back pretty reasonably. Just comparing it to yesterday, of how it kind of comes back to where these guys would have been if we're losing VWAP as a guide of the average on that day. Price is coming back down below VWAP there, so the average short in that case is back to positive or in the green at that point. So as it's just not continuing to happen, so going off of that, as this thing just continues to slowly grind again. It got a little bit more dollar volume today, which was good to see, more volume, like as it was in the craziness mode here for the afternoon just before the close there. But yeah, this thing, I want to say that I should have anticipated a higher move than just 315. I think I should have anticipated a higher move than 315. I really wasn't even expecting any move to come out of it today, but for price, as it develops, it's just a continual adaptation and saying, okay, now we're here. Where do we think we could go from here? Okay, well, we went totally somewhere different. Well, now we're here. It doesn't matter what we thought about back then. That's back then. Where do we think we can go from here? Now it's going to go there. The story goes on, right? So just being able to adapt and adjust on the fly. And yeah, I can knock myself for maybe setting my stop just a little bit too close. And, even with that 5 shares of how I was viewing it, for even with my super small position size, just leave it as a lottery position, let it go where it wants to go. Keep your stops right where you had them initially, and just let it have the huge amount of breathing room, because that's what this one kind of needed today, especially. But yeah, this will be an interesting case study, especially over the next few days here, to see or determine where it wants to continue to go or rip if more volume starts to come in on this specific ticker. It's not like it has huge amount of overhead compared to the dollar volume that we've been producing in these past 4 trading days, where it has been, even though it is a declining daily chart there. But it's just, yeah, the volume is more centrally located here in these trading days. But this will be an interesting case study. Continue to watch and continue to keep as a reference for taking similar trades like this in the future. I definitely found comfort in this style of trade of holding through the little tiny pullbacks, holding overnight, even after it had pulled back all the way over here, as it was still respecting my levels, not getting FOMO, not getting freaked out. It's just, hey, now we can learn from where we adjust our stops, or why we even have that stop to the downside in the first place on a set of shares that is meant to be more pressing and harder pushing for greater upside profit there. So taking all those factors in consideration and learning from it, applying it to the next one. VERU, man, I took a short on this one, a short that I have not really ever taken, actually with my actual margin account. I know I've taken a lot of these paper, but glad I took this one. And interesting to see that Jack number 2 in the chat was actually saying around 10:24ish, I believe, after my entry, of course, that something a little sinister or sketchy was happening around that time frame. He didn't have a position as of yet, but he thought something was brewing, something was cooking. Of course, I don't watch that in real time. I just try to keep to my own opinions and don't want the influence or just stupidity of the world to influence my own stupidity. So I definitely viewed this one as shorting into a multi-day resistance level of, as it was already peaking and already pushing, it had just that secondary little squirt. I love that little phrase again of just pushing and squeezing out a few more extra shorts and saying, I think this is a good risk level and a good little top to be picking and shorting into. I think it is potential overhead resistance can start to climb into on top of this thing from this point. And that was the trade I was looking for. And had it gone against me and shoved to a new high of day, I definitely would have been cutting off there. That's why I kept the size small, because it's not a trade that I normally take at all. Not a trade that I have huge amount of experience or just overall data collection in, but very thankful and grateful for the open perspective that I had to take this trade today. So there are definitely levels, even looking at these little fills for my covers, definitely more opportunity to let it just continue to bleed and die off if it is working than to just be covering so quickly with bigger size shares. I think even this exit was like 10 shares here at this $15 level or just under there. I think I did take 10 shares off, actually, of all of these, of each of these covers. But even at that, it's just so weird and interesting to see, even reading through the new Market Wizards book with Jack Schwager, of all those guys talking about the same thing of paying yourself along the way. And I know that's Tim Grattani's methodology, and a lot of these guys, it's a profitable methodology of just paying yourself along the way, not trying to force more out of trade than is there. But, for the small account size that I do have now, it's just like I'm looking for this specific profit target, and it truly would be cutting my risk reward short if I were to start taking more than half of the position off here at this point. So I think that I do err more on the side of taking profits too soon in these types of price action in a lot of trades, not even just this trade, compared to CYN especially. In a lot of these trades that I do have a lot more room to just let it continue to go and let it keep a larger size of that position, especially when I'm not just pushing very hard position size in a lot of these trades. I do feel that I have a lot more wiggle room to allow more profits to come through before I start taking real size off. I could see myself saying, okay, even with this 30 share position size, let's take 3 shares off. Let's take a 1/10 of the position off as I see its prices pulled back to this little range. Okay, we've secured enough profits to cover the borrow fees. There were super low borrow fees, and this one's just for references me well through Trade Zero. Okay, we've covered the borrow fees. If it comes back and starts spiking and then we get some crazy action there, if it goes to spikes a new high of day, okay, maybe it's a little bit less than break even, but it's, we were a part of it and we got that experience of it, and we did cover at least a little bit of something. We went through the action of paying ourselves, but it's not like we were just excluding ourselves from so many profits that I was taking too big of my position off, but it's adjusting that accordingly to myself of, hey, let's maximize, or let's set ourselves at a limit of in these ranges or whatever percentage wise that I could view for that of, hey, as the chart starts pulling here, I could see myself taking a 1/5 off of my position size and setting like maximum covers of different levels of price as it starts to reach of, hey, I really only want to take off a very small portion of position at this point. And if price starts to move all the way to here, I know I would want to be out 100%, or if price starts, like whatever example you create at that point. But yeah, just overall great trade to be a part of. Again, I want to say luck, but it's making your own luck too, of how many times I've tried to pick the top, to short the top on a lot of these, but recognizing and being patient after this type of price action of seeing it already move so quickly and not trying to be too greedy and step in it too soon, but saying, hey, I think this is the exhaustive point here. I think that's certainly a great risk-reward area for how quick that price moved there, and this could be certainly a turning point for that specific entry, and sure enough, it started working for whatever that Jack was actually talking about. If he was thinking that more craziness was to ensue to test that $16 level, $17 level. But that was certainly how I was reading it in the moment. And sure enough, it worked out beautifully. And a super, super lucky cover. I set a limit at 13.75. And sure enough, the low of this candle is 13.7. So super, super lucky. Lucking out of just like picking a correct number here at this point for that little cover, that last 10 shares cover there. Only taking 5% from it, but certainly, yeah, plenty of profit opportunity there, like I mentioned, of more room to just allow the trade to work for me instead of deceiving myself thinking I'm trading it smartly because I'm covering along the way and covering smartly and paying myself. It's about how much money you end up with. It's not just what the chart looks like or just where I place the arrows. It's about where the arrows are placed on this right side of the chart, right? It's not so much just about the chart itself. So keeping that jackaroo mentality for how many charts we've looked at of him, of how he traded them, I was just like, why would you? He held through that and didn't sell any, or like didn't cover any, vice versa, whatever. Oh my gosh, he's absolutely crazy. But he's also richer than a lot of us. So learning from him is far more beneficial than trying to be pretty or trying to be cute and thinking that that is more success as a trader versus it's about making money at the end of the day. Doesn't matter what it looks like. The same thing with a golf score. There's no pictures on a golf score. It's just about that number at the end of the day. So still keeping that mentality. And yeah, I just want to mention MITQ quick. 3rd-day play today. Didn't take anything on it, but I was so ready on a short level. If this thing started to retrace again to that 1.6 area, to just short the freaking shit out of it. If it was starting to trend, I was getting excited and controlling my emotions here as it was pushing a little bit here with price around that 1.5 level, hoping for price to start trending a little bit closer to that line, because this area, based off of this recent move here from February, was also the line. It worked perfectly. I'm going to actually set it up pretty quick here. Okay, so using this anchored VWAP from this most little recent run-up to February 9th here, and that little kind of it did and then come back down, is at that 1.6 level, and it's similar to where it actually did on that first green day, where that VWAP closed on that first green day of 1.6. So saying that the average short, average long, average position in this trade is right around that 1.6 mark, and seeing that on that second day, how you got the little splurge above there and just immediate rejection off of there, said to me, okay, there's overhead in this, learning that from the daily, from the little move of factoring in from this move there that, hey, there could still be back holders in at that 1.6 mark from this 2.8 level, using that as like, okay, finally we got another chance to get out here on this 3rd day, or even more overhead from any time previous to that of in that previous year there. So say there's a little bit of overhead. If we do start to trend there, I'm just going to absolutely unload on you and just use a little bit risk reward of... Use the risk of 163, 165 range there. If it starts going crazier beyond there, we're going to know that there's obviously something different brewing, and the sides have obviously flipped from that point, but this is the kind of the zone or range, and especially gauging just of how much slippage or just room it had to move there from that second day, and especially that first green day as well, too, these little perks above and below. Using that as a gauge and the reference point to allow for an entry and exit point to not be taken too quickly or just too short, if price started to trend there and then play off of that. But did not happen today, so. But I was prepared. And that's all that matters. That's, I have not feel convicted or confident in a trade like that, or just like the backtesting and preparation ready for a similar trade and just, hey, it didn't happen, so move on to the next one. So that is the excitement of trading, just continuing to do that. And then when they do start to happen, that just being ready like a sniper to just attack full bore. That is the exciting part about it. Not emotionally exciting, just exciting to do the thing. That's the exciting part in all of it. So no real hard scans for me, anything piquing my interest as of right now to go in for tomorrow. Just continue to read what the overall market wants to say, if any craziness should ensue, and being ready to play a few little contracts out there, MES side, if anything does want to show itself or continue to produce harder trend days in that regard. And I'll certainly collect those little trades on that, but just continuing to keep my mind open and play around with the idea of trading based on others' emotions and not just so hard or focus on technical levels, or just because it's a 3rd day that it has to be a 3rd day surge, and it's a 1st day play and I have to play the 1st day, different rip, and blah, 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 all these biases that I held on to, just trading what is there, Not what somebody else told me is or is not there. That is absolutely 100% one of my rules. But just even more so, hey, let's trade what is there. What is the chart saying? Let's let it breathe and let's let it dance around and then do the tango with it and then just absolutely murder it. Let's just karate chop it in the neck and subdue it and then run away as fast as possible because we're not the market. We're just tiny little ants in this big world of the market. So that's all I got. I sincerely thank you guys for watching. We will catch you guys on the next one.